this is always the paradox or the trick, or this is the game to get the most amount of certainty at the earliest point. And Palantir is a great example of this.
If it's okay
Sure.
with you, talk about more generalities when it comes to investing. And I heard, I think it was Galley of Hyperchange, your investment in a stock is conviction times the potential addressable market. So I think TAM or something like that, where you're kind of balancing conviction and the potential of the company. So I thought that was a very good way of putting it. Palantir, their TAM is going to significantly increase in the future. Right now, it's just Foundry and Gotham, but you have to take into account what the TAM of a company like Tesla, we know their TAM is as limited as Elon Musk wants it to be. So I think any company, you have to see what's the leadership doing, what are they planning, what have they said they want to do, and then what's the likely path for that to happen? What's your conviction in that happening? So I think that's interesting. I heard him say that and I love that. So I wanted to mention that here. So what are your thoughts on that? And then I also want to talk about risk reward, concentration, diversification, stuff like that.
I guess the way I look at it is in probabilities, not certainties. We can never be certain about any investment. I've had high conviction investments, not the top three, obviously, but a few that were significant, not to this high of conviction, but really pretty sure, feeling very good, having done a lot of DD and having seen it go the wrong way. So conviction isn't everything. It's always probabilities and not certainties. So you're trying to find the most likely scenario where you're going to realize the most upside. So there's that. And then there's also kind of like the social aspect. I know a lot of people think like ESG and a lot of this business does good stuff as virtue signaling, and it might be, but at the end of the day, Tesla puts out electric cars, it's going to be better for the environment, and that's just the way it is. And if Palantir can figure out how to get medical supplies or vaccines or much needed goods in times of crisis around the world more efficiently, that's going to save lives. I think I like to invest in these companies that at least have a decent shot of improving the world, which is not for everyone. And that's fine. I mean, there's some people that'll invest in oil, dinosaur fuel, whatever just gets a yield, they don't care. But when I can find a company that I could see having a positive social upside and also bring a return, then, it's definitely on the radar. And it's funny you mentioned Galley, because he, to the Tesla world, I feel like you may end up becoming in the Palantir world. I remember him like much younger, obviously, like on Cheddar saying, I have 50 shares, but I'm really excited about this company. I think it's going to be great. And he was very thorough, like you were with Palantir. He was with Tesla. Sometimes his mind just runs so fast, and he's so open-minded and curious that I think sometimes he doesn't get too cute, but he kind of gets into crazy stuff, and some of the crazy stuff works, but it becomes a little obtuse. But I mean, just mad respect for that guy. I mean, always great content with Hyperchange and a lot of stuff he's done on Tesla. So yeah, that is an interesting parallel there.
So you were talking about probabilities, and I saw this on Twitter. I was just wondering if you could wrap up that thought on the probabilities when you're talking about this, because I've heard from Emmett Peppers, if I'm sure you've seen those videos. Anyone in the Tesla community definitely has. And he talks a lot about the probabilities. So this is, I think, a very cool image with some probability distributions. So what are you thinking about when you say probabilities? Are you saying, just for example, there's a very good chance this will happen, or there's a little chance? Like how do you kind of comprehend something when talking about that?
Yeah, so I think the game in all investing is to have the highest conviction of probability the earliest you can. And then if you don't, you pay for it as more information and earnings is revealed. So for example, like I can tell you, like almost certainly Apple is going to continue to be a really great company, large, big profits. But at this point, like when I'm identifying that in 2021, it's like, yeah, welcome to the world. If you can do that in 2007, like really following the technology, the really important stuff, the the iPhone release, and then put a large amount of capital for that asymmetrical upside. That's really when entry points matter. This same principle works with compounding interest if there was any at a savings bank or whatever. It's just the earlier you get in with the bigger stack, which is always hard, right? Because as human beings, we want more time to go by and more information to get more certainty. At that point, it starts to become baked in, priced in, what have you. The probability of reward is less. So this is always the paradox or the trick, or this is the game to get the most amount of certainty at the earliest point. And Palantir is a great example of this, because I see that asymmetrical upside being entirely gigantic, and the cost of admission, for one share is, as we speak today, is at 22. I haven't looked today, but yeah, I think it's a great idea. I just don't know why it's been grouped in the meme stocks. Like, maybe you can help me out with that. I don't see a lot of short interest. It's not like an old movie chain or BlackBerry. This is an entirely different thing. It wasn't a SPAC. Can you help me with that? Because maybe I'm not on Reddit enough. I don't know.
My understanding of it is it was before the whole GameStop. I mean, GameStop was playing out. Roaring Kitty, Keith, sorry, I forget his last name. I would love to see him post more videos, but I think he's probably been silenced. That was playing out before, but before the GameStop spike and peak and everything, there were YOLOs on Wall Street bets and these companies coming in and out of interest. And I think Palantir DPO'd, it popped on opening day and dropped and headed down, I believe, below $9 for a period of time, or it was very slight if it went below at all. But anyway, what I'm saying is we saw the rally in Palantir around the earnings report, their first earnings report, I think. And my guess is there was some sort of YOLO, people betting on the company, the excitement around it, and then the stock took off. And since then, I think there was some sort of that was just part of Wall Street bets and the culture. And it's just one of these stocks. It wasn't the phase with the GameStop and the AMC, although we did see the spikes around there because it was a Wall Street bets name. But as far as I see it, I don't think it's definitely not because of the short interest. I think it is because of the retail interest partly. But the reason I'm speculating on that is because I saw one of my videos was posted around that time or before. So I was guessing because of that retail interest and Alex Karp, the representation of him. I think many people love that on Wall Street bets, and it is an unconventional company. I think my guess is that it just caught on a little bit.
What's funny about that though is if you see it like in the near term, like moon up to $40 or whatever. But if that's from Wall Street bets or from the meme community, it's almost like, well, maybe I don't want that. Like leave my company alone. Do you know what I mean? Because if you love it and you're holding and adding, you want a better entry price. And that may not be sustainable if it's like an internet meme push or whatever. It's almost like if you didn't have a ton of money and like I delivered like, $1 million Italian sports car to your house, initially you'd be like, wow, this is a great gift. And then you'd be like, well, there's nowhere to park it. I have to pay tax on this gift and the insurance is going to be insane. I'd rather just earn it honestly than get it as a gift today. And so that's like a weird kind of analogy, but that's the way I look at like any like pump from Reddit. Like you can just like go do something else. Like we've got a great company here that doesn't need to be like looped in for like, struggling legacy or, for some other odd reason. Like it's good on its own 2 feet if you've got the patience. So yeah, I was just interested if there was something specific or if it just kind of got lumped in. But yeah, thanks for that.
I mean, it's not a company that needs to be saved by the retail traders, the Wall Street bets bidding up the stock. So I think there are companies that will definitely take all the help they can get on that front. Palantir doesn't need the help, and they don't want the scrutiny and the focus of your stock prices going up, but your financials aren't improving just as quickly. So I think Karp was there to say, we don't want that. We don't want that pressure. That's why we've seen Elon Musk in the past say the stock is too high or the price is too high, because he didn't want that pressure on the company because it does a lot I think, to the employees who then get distracted. It's, you want everyone focused. You want your shareholders, your employees, and management, and even the institutional investors. You want all of them focused on the same thing, which is continual improvement on the company and the financials.
Yeah, that Elon, when he said the price is too high too, I always wonder about that. He never said Tesla's too valuable. He just said the price was too high, and then they split, and the barrier to entry was less after the split for a time, and then it obviously did what it did. I don't know about that one. I think it'll be fine on its own. It doesn't need, any pumping. It's just about patience. It seems like Carp has it. It seems like Keel has it. And also that technology in network effects of companies talking kind of needs to play out over time. Time is really important in this. And when you think about it being B2B, and I know you and I are really excited about like this Palantir Light idea or moving down to like B2C, the way I see that is it doesn't need to be wholly expensive or heavyweight software. If you had Joe's trucking company on the East Coast and he ran, a bunch of whatever commodity around the Eastern seaboard and had 12 trucks, that's a small business, but a Palantir Light could still take in all of these disparate sources of what's the weather going to be like, what's the road construction, who typically pays slower. Oh, we've identified one customer as being your biggest problem. And then if, Doug the deadbeat doesn't pay you, then you can't run these 12 trucks, especially during winter. And then this is a potential collapse of your business. That's extremely valuable. And that's like going down market to a small, business in the United States in this example. But if that's at a reasonable price, I would buy that. I know you'd think about whatever that would cost to get that business, but this isn't like Palantir is not a company that has to pay for this huge capital expenditures of like these widget machines that cost X amount to make, to run, to service, and then they produce a widget that is X amount valuable, and then that's your multiple, that's your profit. Like we're in a whole different world here. Obviously, it's not value stock, it's not traditional metrics and discount cash flow. It's just like you have to look at the philosophy of this thing and where thematically where the future may go. I think that's it with Palantir. It's like it's a call option on what we know we don't know. You can figure out kind of what the world's going to be like in 2 years to 5 years maybe, but after 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, can you tell me like what the hell's going on? Like not really, but probably genomics will be important, robotics, and then there we have Sarcos. Maybe it is drones, and we have Lilium. We know enough to know that we don't know, but if we look at the themes, Palantir is positioned to power all of those big macro themes, not unlike ARK Investments kind of looks at. So again, that was a long way to talk about the company, but kind of involves some things going on.
We talked about it a little bit earlier, but at a high level, I think this is a very interesting choice, especially as a way to develop Foundry and use it as a way to iterate on the product. So I think it's genius what they're doing. I don't think they're risking a lot of cash. I think they're in a very good position with that, and making these small bets. Maybe they pay off, maybe they don't. But at the very least, they're going to learn a lot from what the companies are able to do with the product, what it means for them, and then how they can bring it down market even further to the startups, as we're now seeing with Foundry for builders. So I think it's a great bridge between the big enterprises and moving down market. That's the goal. That's what we want to see them do, is conquer Foundry for every kind of business there is. And I think at this present moment, we're seeing this with their SPACs. And as you said yourself, genomics, I mean, we've got Cellularity here, and the other ones, I think there's more than one. We've got a bunch of healthcare companies. I think there's so many verticals they're attacking, and something's going to pay off. One of these is going to do well, and their product is going to continue to evolve. And I think there's no real way to lose here. in their investments.
Yeah, I think the common thread, if I'm not mistaken, is by investing in a lot of these early stage companies or SPACs, there's an implication that Palantir Foundry may be used to assist them grow. So that would be
Yeah.
really bullish. I mean, if you want a company like to put their money where their mouth is, like if their technology is involved in all these things they're investing in, that tells you right there how they feel about their own technology, that it might be like the kindling to start the fire between one of these 9 businesses that we're looking at. And I don't know everything about them, but I do believe Palantir has the free cash flow to be able to do this. And if one of them becomes a household name or changes the world, the other 8 really don't matter if they succeed or fail, honestly. But it is interesting. I don't know if there's a precedent for a lot of companies like doing this on such a scale where they become almost like a ETF proxy in a way. It's really fascinating. Being more conservative sometimes, I almost wish that they could take back some shares on the market, because 2 billion shares seems like a pretty high float for a young company as far as market is concerned. That's one thing. And I know stock buybacks have been pretty all in the rage the last decade, but yeah, I mean, flip a coin on whether to do that, whether to invest in these SPACs, or they could put it into marketing, advertisement, and customer acquisition. So that's always a choice, and you have to trust them somewhat that, they're spending capital as best they can. So yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I personally, have Lilium and Sarco specs just on the merit of how I believe Palantir could empower those companies to grow. So
Personally, I'm not totally sold on SPACs as a mechanism for getting to market. I understand their purpose. I just, for some reason, like a more traditional IPO, direct listing as a second to that. Uh, just because there have been a lot of problems with the SPACs. I know all SPACs are different, they're completely different companies. I'm just not entirely sure if that's the best way. Like if I had a company and I wanted to go public, if I would choose a SPAC simply because it's easier, less capital intensive, or if I would pay up the money and I mean I'm not entirely sure how it works, but I just think there's something better about an IPO. It's you get a stronger investor base from more institutional investors, and maybe that's not a good thing. Carp said they wanted retail individual investors to have a better starting point, which totally respectable. But also we've seen the selling from the executives, so it goes both ways. But yeah, I think the SPACs are going to be a huge piece of the future for the market and the economy. So I think Palantir taking a step and being a part of that is definitely a great thing.
yeah, maybe a lot of these will fail. There is something nice about the traditional IPO process. I think that there's like maybe a more formal vetting of financials, and it's just a more organic way to go. And then, that big picture of your stock symbol or company name on Wall Street's always good, kind of like, I don't know, patina, or kind of like a different, I don't know, varnish on a company. Just it's nice. And I'm not really heavily involved in specs either, just a couple I mentioned because of the Palantir connection. And then today, actually, Matterport, their spec symbol flipped into MTTR, which was cool. And there's a rocket company, Rocket Lab, but there's very few that I'm holding. I do think many of them are highly speculative and come to the market in kind of odd ways. So I'm with you there. Man, I know you're tight on time and I do have stuff too, but this could go for hours. Thank you so much. Like, this is the stuff I love to rap about. I feel like we could have talked about Tesla and Bitcoin quite a bit more, and definitely a lot more depth on Palantir, but just love the opportunity to rap with you. And thank you again for your content. It's been amazing.
Yeah, this was awesome to hear your thoughts on Palantir, some very interesting insights. So I definitely appreciate it. I'm sure everyone hearing this will appreciate it. Because the more diversity of thought we can have on these sorts of topics, the better. I mean, as we said, the Palantir is definitely in the early stage, but more than you would consider this being a company that's nearly 2 decades old. So I think there will be a lot more coverage of it if it actually plays out as we see it playing out. So I think these early thoughts are are definitely key. Yes,
Yeah, in
sir.
like 10 years, this will look like an old VHS tape or something. We'll be like, oh my God, if we would have only known that they would have done this, but this is a good timestamp to mark what I think is still a very early chapter. And so if anyone's listening out there and, wants to get in on this, don't feel like you're late. That's the worst problem, is to feel like you're late and you were actually really early. Seen that a lot. And sorry, I'm sunburned too. I've been working outside on an investment property for the last 10 days, chopping wood. So, but I'm glad to take a break. This has actually been really nice to sit inside. Thank you. And thank you for doing the clubhouse chats too. Maybe we could do another one sometime, and hit me up whenever you got a thought. I'll be here for you, man.
Yeah, I'll put all your stuff, Uncharted Invest, Twitter, all of it in the description.
Go Palantir. Let's see it.
Thanks again, Brian.
All right. Take care, Jackson. Cheers.
Bye.